I was searching for a meditation center, so I read good reviews and I spoke to the person here.
Okay,
and
good.
She said you can visit and you can feel.
Yeah, good. You live in Housecast?
No, so I'm visiting for 2 days.
But
just after the COVID, I wanted to have some time for myself. So I thought of.
Otherwise, where are you based?
I'm based out of Gurgaon.
Gurgaon.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little way away. Take good. Welcome. Otherwise, of course, we're on Zoom as well. But we opened the center again recently. Let's hope we don't have to close it again soon with the rising cases. It may have to happen. Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you could come. Oh, okay. Great. I'm glad.
Yeah. Just wait a couple of minutes. So, have you done any meditation before?
On my own, I would say I try on my own, like every day, just for 5 minutes. But my contributions.
That's fine, because we have a little quiet session here, but then we also are looking at a particular text. So we'll be looking at that and discussing that. So it's not just meditation.
Yeah.
That's okay, no? Yeah. Something different.
Yes.
So Thursdays are generally you found low on the ground?
Like, no, usually Thursdays are generally
Is there something special on TV or it's just one of those days? I think it's hard for people also to come out in this weather. As Sujit was mentioning, increased cases, COVID cases. People got so used to everything online. It's so easy.
Yeah, nobody wants to. I work for an education company, and like all the teachers want to work remote for the summer. Nobody wants to work in person, although all our programs are in person now. So all the remote slots are filling up, and none of the in person. At first, it was like the opposite, where we didn't want to work online.
Yeah.
Now we only want to work online.
It's sad, really. It's understandable, but if children aren't getting the one-on-one, the in-person interaction, I think that's disastrous. Long term, however much one may be able to pick up online, but it's very different. Very different. But I don't know, maybe one is old-fashioned, People who are much younger, they're just used to doing everything online anyway. Yeah. Buying and selling and everything else. Hello, welcome.
Yes, sure.
Okay, let's start. Thank you very much, everyone. Just mute the onliners for things. There are all sorts of strange noises sometimes. It's better to. Sorry?
Yeah, this one.
Sure. So I think we're all familiar with the posture. So the main thing to be aware of is make sure your back is supported. And the back is upright, shoulders level. Let the head be tilted slightly forwards so that it's not up in the air. So the back of the neck slightly elongated, stretched so that the head is tilted a little bit. gazing downwards. Arms relaxed by the side of the body, but slight gap between the torso and the arms to let air circulate. And then the hands in the lap, or just very simply on the thighs and knees. Shoulders level. And check for tension in the muscles of the face, around the eyes, around the jaw. So that be relaxed. Just be aware of tendency to be tense in those areas. There could be a sense of relaxation. We'll be maintaining a stillness in the body, but that doesn't mean that we develop tension as a result of that. Let there be a sense of ease, relaxation, meaning not trying too hard, not getting tense or stressed. So a relaxed attitude, but together with that, of course, being very attentive, alert. So combination of relaxation and being vigilant and attentive in the context of stillness. So the uprightness of the posture, that's important. For circulation, a sense of wakefulness, dignity, you could even say, and a sense of healthy self-confidence. The front of the body will be naturally open in this posture, not closed. And this is important, especially in, you could say, in this tradition of Buddhism, where we are emphasizing, we're not just talking about our own welfare or our own liberation from suffering, where there's a sense of working with the world, working with others. So for that, there needs to be an open-hearted attitude, and sense of communication with the world, with other people. So for that, the openness of the front of the body is important. We're not trying to hide. And as we sit, we're aware of the contact our body is making with the cushion. So the sense of being grounded in the present moment. And this is important. We're not concerned at the moment with the past or the future. They are, in a sense, irrelevant. In one way, irrelevant, illusory. We're just focusing on what's happening right now. The body and the breath. We begin to be aware of breathing in and out naturally. And just a few more statements to make us aware of what we term, what we call a motivation in our practice. After all, everything is based on some kind of intention or motivation. So here, what is the motivation for us to practice together? Again, here we emphasize, as I mentioned earlier, the sense of working with the world, working with others. So here we become aware that we have this precious opportunity as a human being, and we have a responsibility as a part of the community of beings, humans, animals, and so forth. We have a responsibility to each other. And if we look carefully at what is happening in the world, we see a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of misery, actually. Some good things too, of course, but there's so much frustration and unhappiness. And all these beings who want happiness, of course, all these beings who are suffering, they want to be happy, but they just, in a sense, they don't know how to really be happy. But not deep, at least not deeply happy. We have many techniques for temporary satisfaction and pleasure, but lasting sense of satisfaction and contentment, or even joy, that is very elusive. So anyway, our practice, our motivation is to work with ourselves, make friends with ourselves through understanding our minds, understanding ourselves, working with ourselves, generating the potential we have so that we can be of benefit to suffering beings. Be of, some benefit to our world. So even if it's just a very few people, let us be helpful for others. And of course, our aspiration, the sense of long-term vision, can be that, may I really be able to wake up sufficiently, which is the meaning, of course, of Buddha, to be fully awakened. May I be fully awakened so that I can really make a difference for many beings. So this is just a step in that direction. So to be of benefit to ourselves and others, we need to have some kind of stability of mind, some calmness, some focus, attentional stability. So for this, we'll work with the breath for a little while, the naturally arising breath as it enters and leaves our body through the nostrils. So we can practice being aware of the sensation that the breath makes at our nostrils. If that proves to be difficult to focus on, then welcome to bring your attention to the rise and fall of the abdomen. As you breathe in and out, that may be easier. But maybe try first of all with the breath at the nostrils, the sensation it makes as it enters and leaves. So that's the focus. And remember, a gentle focus, not tight, sense of relaxed attention, but attentive enough to recognize when we are hijacked by the thought process. And at that point, we recognize, we let go of the thoughts. We're not going to entertain or be caught up in the thinking process. Just let it go and come back to the breath. It's a simple instruction. It doesn't matter how often you are distracted, just keep on coming back to the breath gently, and a sense of relaxing with the out breath. So we'll sit together for a little while. If you get tired, then after a few minutes, take a quick break and then start again. And don't push hard. Watch out for tension in the face, any other part of the body. And as it arises, be aware of it. And then imagine you're letting it go. It's leaving your body with the out breath. So sense of relaxing and letting go of the tension with your out breath. So welcome everybody who's joined online since we started. And just sitting like that, it's very clear how difficult it is. How difficult it is to, first of all, be still in the body. The body has a lot of discomforts, and the mind is incredibly distracted. That is our normal position, you could say, as human beings, which is why we suffer. Our mind is consumed by the thinking process, by worries and thoughts and anxieties, and it's just not used to staying still. The body is not used to staying still. Of course, our bodies are also, especially those of us living in big cities, often our bodies don't get the exercise we need. Can't sit without the body paining, so that's okay. That's just natural. But it could be a wake-up call for some of us, especially if we're younger people. If you think, okay, if now it's difficult to sit and the body feels, very stiff and all, imagine what it's going to be like in 10 or 20 years, if, so good to sometimes, of course, we don't know how long we're going to live and what's going to happen in this world, but hopefully most of you at least will be alive in 20, 30 years. So what are you going to be, what's your body going to be doing? What's your mind going to be doing? So this little exercise, it can be like a mirror showing us the extent of our distraction, of our inability to stay still inwardly and outwardly, and not as any kind of criticism. It's just like when we look in a mirror at the state of our face, or open our mouth and the dentist looks at the state of our teeth. So here we're looking at the state of our mind and body without any kind of negative judgment, just to see and say, aha, that's interesting. The mind gets totally distracted, the body feels very uncomfortable, restless. So, yeah, it shows us the work to be done. Unless, of course, we feel it's enjoyable being in pain or restless. And we get so used to it that maybe, we feel, well, this is how I am. Of course, we can't all look and behave like serene Buddhas right now for long, but anyway, it's useful, these kind of practices. But if we could just be aware of the breath and aware of the distraction and let it go and come back to the breath, then that's wonderful. If we could only do that once or twice, then that's good. What do people here think? 3 of you were very restless. Pain? Thoughts? A lot of thoughts? Worries?
One leg fell asleep, so restless.
Yeah. And the mind? What is the mind up to?
It was wandering everywhere.
Everywhere, no? Yeah. Near and far. Worries or just random thoughts?
No worries.
No worries. Good for you. Good for you. That's good. Yeah. Thoughts of the past, future, tomorrow. It's not too far ahead, I guess. Yeah. What about you, Anushri? How far did your thoughts go? You were very restless.
I was missing someone. I was missing some place and someone.
You're missing a place and someone. Well, that's the story of life, isn't it? missing where we are not. When you're in Rishi Valley, well, when you're somewhere else, you'll miss Tushita. When you're at Tushita, you'll miss something else. You weren't able to stay on the breath at all?
Thrice.
Hmm?
Only thrice.
Thrice. That's good. Pretty good. It's not good or bad, it's whatever. But it's interesting. Missing someone, missing a place. I wonder how much that is fed. That thought, that feeling, that sense is fed by the thought process, right? Without thoughts, you wouldn't miss the person, right? Without thoughts. Or, of course, there's an image as well, maybe. So thoughts and images, so forth. Yeah, it's difficult to let go of them, even for a short while. So, in a sense, we are slaves. This practice shows us we are slaves of our thoughts. We are slaves of our images, inner images, exciting images, painful images, whatever. Yeah. So as one teacher I was reading recently said, the worst kind of slavery is the slavery, being slaves to ourselves. We're slaves to our minds. We're not free at all. External slavery is one thing, but we are totally, internally, we are slaves to our mind. Meaning here the ordinary thinking process and so forth. Yeah. Anyway, food for thought. Something to be aware of. And one could practice maybe a much shorter session, 2-3 minutes, and see if one can maintain some stability there on the breath and not get carried away. The point being that, if we're somewhere else all the time, or missing something or someone, or, back, past, and future, we're just, first of all, we're not really here. We're not in the present moment. We're not able to see clearly the present moment and the present moment of awareness. Plus, aren't we just making things more difficult for ourselves? Aren't we? It's a kind of subtle self-torture almost that we are very familiar with. And we wouldn't think of it as self-torture, but it is something like that. No one's forcing us to do this. But we are doing it to ourselves, and it makes us uncomfortable, unpeaceful. Makes our mind unpeaceful and our body unpeaceful. So, and in this tradition, and I guess in any mature spiritual tradition, or amongst mature practitioners, let's say, there's an understanding that no one is going to save us, At least in Buddhism, God's not going to save you because we don't believe in gods in that sense. Your guru's not going to save you. I mean, your guru can point things out and really help, but the guru can't do the work for us. We have to do that work, isn't it? So who else can help us? Our best friend can't help us much. Of course, a little, but our best friend can't get into our mind and work our mind for us and make sure it's peaceful and quiet and so forth. And often with our friends, the downside is we depend on them. We depend on their company. We depend on their stimulus, just like we might depend on a drug or food or something. So we are left, painful as it may sound, initially we are left with ourselves. We are masters of ourselves. We are responsible for ourselves. Nobody is going to save us. That's kind of terrifying also. Most religions have a sense that, God will be graceful. Maybe you'll have the grace of God or some saint or your guru's grace that will save you. And to a large extent, that is also possible. But we have to do a lot of work ourselves for that external energy also to affect us positively, don't we have to do a lot of work ourselves? It's not just going to come. We have to be open to it. Anyway, yeah, we are, in that sense, we are refugees. We have to take care of ourselves. Can't carry our home on our backs everywhere. We're dependent on our own inner resources. So that's a big responsibility. But it's possible, and it's the only way, it is said. I mean, you tell me if you think there's another way. If you think somebody else really can save you through some kind of magic or divine power, put you in the saved category. Think about it. But Buddha said we are perfectly capable of becoming our own best friends. And as he said when he was passing away, be lamps unto yourself. Be a light unto yourself, in other words, and work out your own liberation, work out your own salvation diligently. Yeah. So all the books, all the knowledge, all the texts, all the commentaries, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of it. It's all, don't you think the essence of it is to help us to understand and work with our own minds, with our own afflictions, mental afflictions, with our neurosis, work with it with skillful methods, and go beyond that to wake up using skillful methods taught by, in this case, Lord Buddha. And for that, the mind has to learn to be focused. Otherwise, it's all over the place, as we can see. Yeah. Okay. So now, pass these. So we have a text here, which is a remarkable text, which helps us to. If I make the text small on my screen, it doesn't mean it will be small on their screen, right? I'm opening up my screen so I can see the people, and I hope you can all see the little text, the text of these 8 verses of training the mind, which, and of course the other thing I could have mentioned, and we take it for granted, if we're going to save ourselves, we need a lot of courage. We need some enthusiasm and basic self-confidence, right? That's why we sit upright and not cry, in a kind of painful crouch or slouch. We're upright because there's work to be done. We have to be brave to work with ourselves and to work with the world, and to work with all of the challenges. So many challenges. I mean, for me, it's a challenge getting all the bills, all the bills that come. You have to pay the bills, you have to work this out, you have to work that out. And for someone like me, that's also a challenge, Then there's all the people in one's life. One has to work with different people, different characters, all with aspects of their character that one might find a little difficult. So anyway, yeah, those who haven't been following with this text with us, spend a few minutes to just read the verses. I'm not going to go through all of them again, but the point here being made, and it's a very important one, is that in that context of oneself being one's best friend and oneself being one's worst enemy, the thing we really have to watch out for is what we call in Buddhism the self-grasping ignorance. So this holding on very tightly to a sense of I, me, mine, and which leads to a kind of very self-centered attitude, a very defensive attitude, an attitude where we are caring more for ourselves than for anybody else. We're just totally often just self-centered. we are preoccupied with ourselves. And this is a cause of tremendous pain. In fact, the cause of all of the suffering in the universe, according to Lord Buddha, is caused by this self-centered attitude based on this clinging and grasping at I, me, mine. That's where all of our suffering comes from. And together with that, if we can open up genuinely and reach out to others, cherishing others or caring for others genuinely is the source of all happiness. So you could say that the sort of distracted, self-centered, egotistic attitude, clinging to I, me, mine, that's the cause of all of our suffering. And genuinely reaching out to others with empathy, compassion, loving kindness, that is the source of all happiness in the universe. This is the simple but not so simple premise. We could think about that as well. We need to get that also straight in our heads that that could be so. So we have to check whether, when I'm being self-preoccupied with me and my problems, what is that like? If I spend most of my time just focused on me, what I want, what I don't want, what is that like? And what is it like when we can let go of that and open up to other people and their needs, which is a more relaxed and happier sort of situation. This we have to check. From the perspective of these teachings, it's very clear. When we start to live our life really for others, cherishing others, then that is when real happiness starts. Not until then. Until then, everything is nakli. Everything is fabricated. It's something very, very unstable when we're just preoccupied with me, oneself, or just the people close to us that we use to sort of prop up our own lives. If we have a very, very small circle like that, then that's problematic. So that's why from the very first verse, it's saying that we hold others very dear. The aim is to hold other beings as very dear, very precious. Because our aim is to actually, in this tradition, to become fully awakened. The highest aim for the benefit of sentient beings is to become awakened, to become a Buddha in order to benefit them. Yeah. And here it's saying they're even, beings are much, much, much more beneficial than even the mythical wish-fulfilling gem, which in myth could give you everything, material that is, wealth and this and that, and maybe long life too, I don't know. But the wish-fulfilling gem couldn't give you lasting happiness, couldn't give you liberation, couldn't give you those things, which we can receive through properly caring for and developing qualities based on others, based on other beings. So this whole text is about how our very spiritual development depends upon others. Because our practice of patience, our practice of generosity, all of our positive practices depend on other people. We can't do how can we practice patience, for example, which is so important, without other people, and especially without people who give us a difficult time. So this is what this text is basically about, how to see others as supreme, hold them as superior from the depths of our heart, as the second verse says, because usually we don't. We're busy criticizing, looking at the faults of others, comparing ourselves with others, and so forth, and often thinking of ourselves as superior to others in many ways, depending on whatever, so many factors we take into consideration, including the kind of clothes they're wearing or the shoes they're wearing, or, whether they've shaved or combed their hair or whatever. We have many instant judgments about other people based on very superficial aspects. We don't really hold others very, dear and supreme and superior. That we can see very easily, how the world how people behave with someone who is very clean and well-dressed and how they might behave with someone who isn't, or who is obviously less educated than oneself. One behaves differently. So here it's kind of asking us to reverse those attitudes. Then the third verse talks about something very important, how we need to be very mindful of what's happening in our own minds. We must check when the unwholesome attitudes are arising, because they come up very quickly without us knowing. A few thoughts and then we're fully into attachment, jealousy, anger. All these things can come up very quickly if we're not attending our minds. Just like a thief could break in very quickly. If the chowkidar is even asleep for just half a minute, a thief can come in, right? Go past. So, third verse. Then the fourth verse is showing us how, the more unpleasant the person, the more suffering they're having, then the more jewel-like, the more precious that person is for you and your practice, because then you begin to really understand what suffering is. And you really begin to then have to look at, generating patience and compassion for that person rather than aversion and wanting to, push them away and having, negative thoughts towards them. Think of a very unpleasant person in your life, or just doesn't have to be a personal, someone personally, but just somebody in the world whom you find very, very unpleasant. Just thinking of them makes you really quite, just don't want to think about them. So they have strong negative emotions or whatever, or they suffer a lot. You just don't want to know about them. But here the verse says, may I hold them very dear, because such people are rare to find. You don't find so many of them necessarily. And these are people whom you can really develop your mind in relation to your attitude to them. Based on this unpleasant person, you can develop more patience, more love, more compassion. Dalai Lama Ji gave the example of Mother Teresa caring for, the people on the streets of Calcutta. I mean, these people would be sick, smelly, not nice to look at, maybe, incontinent, but, her nuns would look after them, clean them, look after them, and help them die with some kind of dignity. Something that we wouldn't want to look at also, yeah? I mean, how many times we've heard about people dying in the street or whatever, and people just walk by, no one wants to know. How many times we've seen people like that in the street? People walk by, or if it's exciting enough, they take a video or a photo, but they just walk on. How many people stop like the Good Samaritan and actually take care of someone in that situation? So Dalai Lama Ji was saying how amazing that work is. And one of my friends, a monk, he spent some time working with Mother Teresa and her nuns in Kolkata. And he said it was mind-blowing. That's where he really began to understand a little bit what perhaps love and compassion meant. Because he'd been studying Buddhism a long time. He'd been a monk a long time. But then our teacher, recommended he go and work with Mother Teresa for a while. So he did that. He was an Australian monk who'd been a soldier also. He'd seen many different sides of life. He'd seen violence and, warfare in the Middle East and so forth, in Israel actually. And anyway, he became a monk. And when he went to Mother Teresa, and he was looking after people who were sick and dying. And some of them died there in front of him, of course. Maybe, I think one or two right there in his lap kind of thing. So that, and looking after them, that's where he said he had to practice. It was not just words anymore, it was real practice of caring for another, whom initially you wouldn't necessarily want to, unless it, of course, was your own child. Like a mother can do a lot for her own child, right? When the child is dirty or smelly or sick or, whatever, but the mother will care usually for the child. But here, this is not someone who is our child. And situation may be very grim, but these nuns would very lovingly take care. So anyway, so these are like jewel treasures, and I'm sure those nuns and Mother Teresa would say that for them that was how they found whatever, or served God, or found God, or whatever you want, whatever language they use. This for them was real work, real God's work, the service of others in that way. Yeah. So, but this can also mean people who are very unpleasant and obviously, bad-mannered and all of that. One can see how they are suffering. Just through a little understanding, we can see how they're obviously not happy if they're behaving in a very negative way. So then we can develop compassion based on that. Then, of course, others are going to treat us badly. Fifth verse, with abuse and so forth. And people can be jealous of us, slander us, scorn us, Then we need to learn to not just always talk back, fight back, abuse them back. We need to understand how this is, again, a situation we can learn from. Yeah? The whole attitude here is to benefit others, you see, their minds, and not to harm their minds. So, not to escalate, situations. So how to do that skillfully? Sometimes we need to say to the other, okay, yeah, you're right. At least not to retaliate. But of course, many people then say, well, should I allow people to treat me badly all the time? Treat me like a carpet? Well, of course not. That's not helping them. It's not helping you. But the point is, our usual attitude of, I want to have the last word. I want to win. I want to be best. If they slander me, I will slander them back. I'm not going to take any, bullshit from anyone. And that kind of aggressive attitude, this is what we're trying to let go of. Why are we trying to do that? Because the being who's studying and practicing, trying to practice this kind of teaching, wants to be, you could say, regards all sentient beings as like their child, like their sick child. They want to take care of others, help others. Seeing their suffering, they want to help other beings. Yeah. They want to help others. And it doesn't help others to just repay in the same coin. If others are being negative, we have to be some other way, out of compassion for them, out of care. Like when someone is sick with fever, we don't act back in a feverish way. We try to help them with their sickness. And as the Buddha famously says in the Dhammapada, or the words of the Buddha in Dhammapada, hatred is not healed or not solved by hatred. Yeah, anger is not solved by anger. Hatred is not solved, but what's the word? Anger is not healed, let's say, by anger. Anger is healed by love. So that's the kind of attitude that the being here is taking, who's practicing these verses. Fire is not put out by more fire, it's put out by water. Any questions so far? This has all been kind of a quick revision. Any comments? Does it make sense? So our natural inclination is to retaliate very often, get very upset when people are misbehaving. But if we see how they are suffering, how it's a result of their own deluded minds, being slaves of their own minds, slaves of causes and conditions in their own mind, then we can begin to look at it differently. And for that, the patience chapter of this great text by an Indian Bodhisattva saint, you could say, Pandit Shantideva, is one of the best things to study. Because he says, for example, in his famous chapter on patience, that's chapter 6 in this great text, he says, he said, if things could be according to our wish, then suffering would never happen, because nobody wants pain of any kind, right? So why does pain occur? Why does suffering happen? It's because of the disturbing emotions. Yeah. Some hang themselves even. Some people hang themselves, leap into the void. They take poison or consume unhealthy food, or by their evil conduct, they bring destructions on themselves. For when negative emotion seizes them, they even kill themselves, the souls they love so much. So how could they not be the cause of other people's distress? He's saying people are even willing to kill themselves. Of course, people are going to be willing to harm others. When we're under the influence of negative emotions, we can do anything, as we know. So although we almost never feel compassion for those who through this negativity bring about their own end, what purpose does our anger serve? If those who are like wanton children are by nature prone to injure the other people, then there's no reason for our rage. It's like resenting fire for being hot. Sick people are going to behave in a sick way. Say you went to a mental asylum, you wouldn't expect people to behave normally. You expect them to behave in a weird way. You don't expect fire to be cold, you expect fire to be hot, you're saying. So why are we so surprised when beings behave badly? Of course they're going to behave badly, because they are consumed by the negative emotions which keep on coming up. We're slaves of our ignorance, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, all the time. It's coming up, right? Our restlessness, our distraction. Of course we're going to be acting in a way that is harmful for others now and again. But he's also saying that these faults are coming and going. They're not something permanent. So it's senseless to resent them. It would be like being angry at the sky when it's full of smoke. Meaning, okay, the sky may be full of smoke, but it's not always full of smoke. Although Delhi sky sometimes seems like it's full of stuff all the time, but there are times when it can be very clean. So what's the point of resenting it? Then, of course, he says, there's so many amazing verses. I mean, this whole chapter is just, this whole book is extraordinary. I hope you all get a chance to look at this book one day. It's, Dalai Lama said that if he has any real compassion, it's on the basis of this text by Shantideva, 8th century Shantideva. This is a textbook on compassion, generating compassion and wisdom too. So he says, say someone's harming you, then he says, say someone's harming you with a stick. Then Shantideva says, their weapon, my body. Both are the causes of my suffering, right? That person's stick, let's say, and my body. So they use their weapons, I put forward my body. Who then is more worthy of my anger? Meaning both things are involved. No, I have such a body like this, which is easily hurt. How did that come about? Due to karma. And why am I so upset when somebody beats me? That's because my mind is not trained. I'm disturbed by even small things, like a tiny mosquito disturbs me, right? So I put forward my body, the other person uses a stick. Two things are involved there. So how can I just be angry with the other person? I should be angry with myself as well. This body of mine, a running sore in human form, merely touched, it cannot stand the pain. I'm the one who grasped at it in my blind attachment. Then whom should I resent when pain occurs? This also has deeper meaning in the sense that it said we take rebirth again and again because there's this grasping. There's a wanting at the end of life. There's a grasping for more incarnation, grasping for a body occurs before death, close to the time of death. So then again, it's like we want a body again and again. We who are like children shrink from pain, but we love its causes. He's being very tough with us, Shantideva. We're like children. We shrink from pain, but we love its causes. We hurt ourselves through our own misdeeds. So why should others be the object of our anger? We're the cause of our pain. The main cause of our pain, our suffering, is we ourselves. Others just put forward a few triggers or conditions, but the main cause is we ourselves. And he also says at one point, this very powerful verse that, if I'm practicing patience, then that's helping me. If someone hurts me, say, they are creating negativity, they are creating negative karma, they are creating causes for their own future suffering. So when someone abuses me or hurts me, and I'm practicing patience, what's happening is that person is helping me develop patience, therefore helping me develop good karma and a good future, a good life, liberation, enlightenment. So that's what they're doing for me. What am I doing for them? I'm acting as an object of their anger. So I'm helping them go to hell. Not because I want to, but because of me, they get angry, are behaving badly, abusing me, creating negative karma, they're suffering. Because I have some intelligence and I'm trying to practice the teachings, I use their bad behavior to develop patience. I'm benefiting. They're not benefiting from my patience. I'm benefiting. So because of me, they are suffering. Because of them, I'm benefiting. This so-called negative, horrible person. You see how Shantideva has switched this, and we can't fault the logic if we're looking at it from this patient's perspective. The worse they behave, the more patience I can develop, the more they are helping me. And the worse they are behaving, the more I am becoming the cause of their suffering, because they're just getting angry and creating negative karma, which will harm them. So the harm I'm getting from just hearing a few words of anger, that's nothing compared to what they are going to suffer. So you see, it's we should feel unbelievable compassion for that person who is creating their own cause for hellish pain, and for helping us develop more and more understanding of samsara, more and more compassion. Does that make sense? It's useful to think in this way. Otherwise we go gaga, right? When people misbehave, we just can't handle it. But this is giving us a way to handle it, right? You see how people are slaves of their negative emotions, just like we can be sometimes. It's not like we have always been patient and kind, right? But the point is that none of us are permanently angry, permanently, lustful, permanently jealous. It's not possible. And we all have the Buddha nature. That's another important part of this teaching. We all have the seed of enlightenment in us. None of us is doomed forever. That kind of idea is there. So even the person misbehaving, they are just at the moment a very obscured Buddha. They're a future Buddha, but right now under the dominion of disturbing emotions. It's like a very, very dark, cloudy sky or monsoon sky or something in some countries where You don't see the sun for many days on end or weeks on end, possibly. But you know it's there. You know the sun is there, and you know that it will come out one day. I mean, in some northern countries, northern latitudes, you don't see the sun much for some months of the year, I think. If you're above 60 degrees north or something, 65 degrees north, you don't see the sun much. I think what are we here? We're only 33 degrees north or something like that. So if you're at those high latitudes, it's a different experience. But we know the sun is there and it comes out the other season. So it's not like we can give up on living beings. Just like the mother doesn't give up on the child just because it's temporarily sick or doing caca all over the place, Okay, the mother knows it's temporary. It's going to grow up and learn to, train and so on and so forth. Or the child may be sick and has diarrhea, but the mother knows it's temporary. So she can deal with it. Hopefully, if the mother is not too stressed in other ways, poor thing. Having to juggle lots of things. So yeah, you see, it's just a different way of looking at life and at what's happening. And it's very helpful because often we see things just one perspective and then we go crazy. We just see something superficial and then we react. If we go deeper, we see so much more at work. And let's face it, the worse people behave, usually almost always it means they're going through a lot of pain. They have a very difficult situation, maybe in their life or internally, or they just have a lot of bad habits, habitual patterns of anger, jealousy, and so forth. Then what's the response? Compassion. Like a good doctor. How does a good doctor feel for a very sick, chronically sick patient? Doesn't feel angry because the patient has chronic, whatever, kidney disease or heart disease. Stupid. It would be a hopeless doctor that felt anger. They would feel, kindly, and they would benefit, of course, from that patient. They would make more money out of a chronically sick person, So the other person is a source for their benefit. Please interrupt if you think I'm talking nonsense, because sometimes one just talks in a bubble. And for me, you people, you're kind of real people, but you're also just shapes and colors. And, you're not as real as I feel I am. I feel very real. Sometimes I feel unreal as well. But and then there's these rectangles on the screen, 10 people, only 2 of whom are showing their faces right now. So it's you have to tell me if I'm just in a bubble of my own making. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Vishad, does it make sense what I'm saying? He's online. He usually has something sensible to say. Vishad bhai, am I talking sense?
Nothing to say, Kabirji.
Nothing to say. You're totally okay. Nothing to say. Right, let's go on to the next verse, which is the really tough verse, the 6th verse. This is really, so if you ever want to test yourself, give yourself the highest test as to whether your mind is becoming more gentle and more compassionate, then give yourself this test. Of course, you may not have someone like this in your life, but if you do, you'll find out. So verse 6 says, when someone whom I have helped or in whom I have placed great hopes mistreats me in extremely hurtful ways, may I regard him still as my precious teacher. Babre, babre. Yeah, exactly, Bob. आप हिंदी में इसको पढ़ सकते हैं? कोई अच्छा हिंदी पढ़ने वाले हैं? Anushya, is your Hindi good? Not good? Huh?
Can I try?
Yeah, I hope so.
So it's
जोर से बोलिए. Verse 6.
जिस पर मैंने उपकार किया और जिससे बड़ी अपेक्षा रखता हूँ, यदि वह अत्यंत अनुचित रूप से हानि पहुंचाए, तब भी मैं उसे परम कल्याण मित्र के रूप में देखूं.
सॉरी, शुद्ध हिंदी. कहने का मतलब तो यही है ना कि anyway, you get the meaning. मैंने किसी को बहुत मदद किया, बहुत आशा रखा, बहुत ही चाह रहा था उनसे, लेकिन वो क्या करते हैं, वो हमको बहुत हानि पहुंचाते हैं, है कि नहीं? बहुत हानि पहुंचाते हैं. उनको ही मैं अपना गुरु मानूंगा, कल्याण मित्र मानूंगा, गुरु मानूंगा. Wow. So you hear often from parents who've looked after their children for 20, 30 years or more, from when they are helpless infants to maybe, someone in their late 20s even. Parents are still helping them or more. And then what does that child do? Kind of neglects the parents, or maybe reads something or gets in with certain people who convince that person that actually your parents have been a negative influence on you. They did this, they did that, they didn't do this correctly. So you develop a negative attitude towards your parents, and say you send them a nasty letter or something in which you blame them for something. You say, oh, I have this problem right now in relationships or in this and that, and I see now how it's all because of you, all because of you, and I'm fed up with you, and you haven't given me a proper life, and you've spoiled my life. We could do all sorts of things. People do much worse to their parents. Or you can just neglect the parents. Your parents need your help. They may be a little sick. They may need your help, financial help, or they may really want your company. They're lonely, and you have money, but then you say, okay, I'm just going to put you in an old people's home. You can just go there. And then you don't visit them. You hardly visit them. This is mild, but here it's saying mistreats me in extremely hurtful ways. Of course, for a parent, that could be extremely hurtful. The person wouldn't have to do any more than that, and write such a letter, or just neglect them and say, well, yeah, I've organized for you to be put in this home, and don't worry, I'll come and visit you once a month or once or twice a year, or I'll visit you at Easter, and maybe at Christmas or something. I mean, that would be extremely hurtful for parents who, of course, have expectations of their children, of a child whom they've helped. But of course, it can be any situation. You help someone a lot over a period of time. Somehow you help someone who's been sick, or you help them financially, or you give them a place to stay. What do? Not only do they say maybe don't treat your place very well, but then they are not nice to you, they criticize you, they blame you for this and that. They, they talk about you behind your back in a nasty way when you've done all these things for them. How do we feel? We feel terrible. And we need a friend then to go and talk to about this, and we talk to them about tell them how terrible this person has been, and we want reassurance from our friend that yes, this is terrible, this is awful. A nice long talk, many talks with many friends about how terrible this person is, whom I helped so much. I had great hopes. You see, here also it shows how we have also been unskillful, in whom I have placed great hopes. It's not very skillful in life to put too much hope in anything. Even thank you for coming. All the best. So one's reminded of a quote from a very great Tibetan yogi, Milarepa, one of the greatest Tibetan yogis. It said that a four-liner, which I remember. It says, like a lion, I have no fear. Like an elephant, I have no anxiety. Like a madman, I have no expectation and no hope. I tell you the honest truth. So that kind of attitude, that's a very unusual attitude, obviously, to have no fear, to have no anxiety, to have no expectation and no hope. It almost sounds hopeless, but of course it's not meant in that sense. Milarepa was not hopeless or in despair, but he meant he didn't put any undue hopes or expectations on worldly things, people or places or whatever. He also said things like, toss to the winds your concern for this life and bring to your mind the unknown time of your death. Remembering the pain of samsara, why long for the unnecessary? So don't long for so many things. Don't long for all these unnecessary things which are not going to help you, after you die. Not going to even help you very much in this life, possibly. So anyway, we put great hopes in people, and of course, parents often do take care of their children with the hope that the child will take care of them in the future, and that's understandable. And of course, in an ideal golden age, the children would naturally want to repay the kindness and look after the parents. But if we do have such great hopes of people, and then they don't behave the way we want, then we feel very hurt. But this verse is saying, that's your precious teacher. ये आप इन इस व्यक्ति को आप गुरु मानिए, इनको आप गुरु मानिए, इन्होंने आपको बहुत कुछ सिखाया. This is your patience guru, not just a person who's a little unpleasant and is very upset when you ask them to stand up for you in the metro and they scowled at you. Not that person. The person you helped for many years and repays your kindness with abuse, with great ingratitude, or harms you in some way, steals from your house, steals from you. You help them so much with money and everything, and they steal from you. So what this teaches us, of course, is the power of what does it teach us? What does this teach us? If someone does that, what's it actually teaching us? Apart from patience, what's it telling us? Someone steals from us. No. Yeah, no, but what does it tell us about that person? Of course, we should develop good qualities in return, but what does it tell us about that person? If they repay our kindness in such a way that they steal from us or are nasty to us, what is it telling us? Very simple. It's not a trick question. I've answered it already. Huh? Are they jealous? They could be. But what is it teaching us about life? I'm not going to give you more hints. If I'm kind to you and you're not kind to me, what is it telling me? Huh? So what is it telling us in general about things? Of course. Yeah. No. Sure. Of course. No, that just simple point I was making, it just shows how much people are under the power, are slaves of the disturbing emotions. That's what it's really telling us, that we are all in samsara because of the disturbing emotions. Ignorance, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, deluded doubt, all of those things, because it's absolutely clear that something, is going on here. Otherwise, why would someone behave like that? You've been nice to them, you've been kind to them, you took care of them, and now they're treating you badly. What's going on? Obviously, they are under the control of something, which is causing them to behave in a very strange way, in a way that the whole world would kind of see as a bit crazy, as not worthy of blame. worthy of blame. So this just shows the power of the unwholesome mind, the negative emotions, which of course can cause many of us to do all sorts of things on the spur of the moment. If we have enough anger, we can stab someone, we can say something which we can regret for a long time, or we can, crying of passion and so forth, all these things. We can do many things based on disturbing emotion erupting in the mind. People can keep a negative emotion in their mind for years and take revenge on somebody in all sorts of ways, keeping that negative emotion burning in their mind for so long. Think of that, totally the slave of that. And at the same time think that it's good what they're doing, that it's right. They did this to me or my family, so I'm going to do it to them. You harbor that thought. Or they abuse me, I'm not going to talk to them forever. And then you don't. Whenever you think of that person, you reignite that negative feeling. So according to Buddhism, this creates unbelievable negativity, mental pollution, and creates a propensity to keep on thinking in that way. You see, that's the problem. Once we get used to these disturbing emotions and thoughts, it's easy to keep on repeating them. This is the problem. This is one dreadful problem. The habitual pattern that builds up. So then again we behave in the same way. Again we do the same thing. So if it's something as bad as killing, then imagine how dangerous that is. If we just get used to killing, it's not a big deal for us, killing small animals or birds or fish or something. For some people, humans too. Imagine that becomes a habit. And it's not a big deal for us. So we even get paid well for it. Yeah, paid to be a good fisherman, paid to be a mercenary or soldier or sniper or whatever. Imagine the potential you're creating with that. And the Buddhist point is, of course, it carries on life to life. It doesn't just finish in this life. We have strong propensities in this life. It can go on to the future. It does go on. So that's the danger of it. We keep on creating that negativity, negative karma, which has result of suffering, tremendous suffering for oneself more than anyone else. So, yeah.
कबीर जी,
हाँ जी योगी जी.
ये जो negativity है, the negativity is most of the people in the society. How do we change it? It's all around the world. It's terrible.
आप कैसे बदलेंगे उसको? नहीं कर सकते हैं. पहले अपने दिमाग में करना है ना.
पूरी दुनिया में हो जाए, बुद्धिज्म में सब हम हो जाए, सब बदल जाए, तभी हो सकता है.
तो आप कैसे करेंगे ये सबको बुद्धिस्ट बनाना? आजकल थोड़ा कठिन है.
हम तो शुरुआत कहीं से एक दो से कर सकते हैं.
अच्छा, द्वारका से करेंगे आप शुरुआत?
जी हाँ, करूंगा.
हाँ,
करूंगा, जहां से भी आप कहेंगे करेंगे.
हाँ, तो फिर मैं आपसे मिलूंगा अस्पताल में जाके, क्योंकि बहुत से लोग आपका पिटाई करेंगे अगर आप ऐसे करने लगेंगे ना. तो मैं आपसे मिलने आऊंगा अस्पताल में, है ना. इतना आसान नहीं है भाई साहब. पहले अपने को देखना है. जैसे शांति देव ने बोला, अपने पैर पे जूते लगाइए. पूरा दुनिया को चमड़ा से आप नहीं, पूरा दुनिया पर चमड़ा नहीं बिछा सकते हैं.
यही तो प्रॉब्लम है बहुत बड़ा.
है तो है ही, लेकिन क्या कीजिएगा. आप अपना संभालिए ना, अपने दिमाग को. क्योंकि बाकी लोग क्या करेंगे क्या नहीं करेंगे वो हम लोगों के हाथ में नहीं है. यही है कि शिक्षा जो है ना बच्चों के लिए, अगर एक अच्छा शिक्षा हो, जो आजकल फैल रहा है कई जगह, जिसमें इमोशनल हाइजीन की बात हो रहा है, कंपैशन की बात हो रहा है, कोरोना की बात, इससे हो सकता है कि कुछ बच्चे अच्छे निकलेंगे, अच्छे इंसान बनेंगे. तो उससे थोड़ा फर्क पड़ेगा ना. लेकिन जो पहले से बिगड़ चुके हैं उनको जबरदस्ती बुद्धिस्ट बनाना या करुणाशील हृदय उनके शरीर में ठोकना, वो तो मुश्किल है ना. नहीं हो पाएगा।
हाँ, वो तो दिक्कत है, प्रॉब्लम है। मैंने देखा था ये श्री श्री रविशंकर जो आर्ट ऑफ लिविंग चलाते हैं,
जी
मैं जब इंडिया के बाहर था, मिडिल ईस्ट में, तो उनके एक दो शिविर में मैं गया था। तो वो हर शिविर में जो लोग पार्टिसिपेंट से उनसे बोलते थे कि तुम 5 आदमी लाओ, तुम 5 आदमी लाओ, हर कोई 5-5 आदमी लेके आए, इस तरह से हम बढ़ाते रहेंगे।
ठीक है।
कैन वी थिंक ऑफ समथिंग लाइक दिस?
You can think of it, yeah. आप 5 आदमी ले आइए ना तुषिता।
हाँ, ले आएंगे।
आप तो खुद भी नहीं आ रहे हैं, अब 5 आदमी छोड़ो, आप 5 आदमी लेके आइए, तब मैं आपकी बात मानने लगूंगा, है कि नहीं? It's what? Raining. आपके शब्दों से बारिश पड़ने लगी, वाह, I love it. योगी, आप सचमुच योगी हैं, योगेंद्र जी, वाह।
मैं तुषिता आने के लिए बहुत ही लालायित हूँ, लेकिन मेरी तबीयत बहुत खराब है और शाम को नहीं आ सकता,
कोई
शाम
बात
को नहीं आ सकता, क्योंकि उधर से वापसी में कुछ नहीं मिलता है ट्रांसपोर्ट।
एनीवे, ये कुछ दिन हम लोग तुषिता खुला रखेंगे 9 या 10 बजे सुबह से, तो आप आ जाइए।
हाँ, या और फिर कभी कोई गेट टुगेदर कीजिए जिसमें आ सकते हैं, थोड़ा जैसे 10 बजे के बाद हो, सुबह 8 बजे नहीं।
एनीवे, संडे मॉर्निंग को होता है ना प्रोग्राम, तो उसमें भी आ
हाँ
जाइए।
हाँ, ठीक है,
ओके,
ओके ओके,
थैंक्स,
थैंक यू, थैंक यू।
थैंक यू योगी जी।
अच्छा, मेरा एक और प्रश्न था।
एक मिनट, हाँ, एक मिनट, एक यहाँ भी सवाल था शायद।
अच्छा, उनका सवाल ले लीजिए पहले।
हाँ, नॉट लेटर, नाउ, आस्क नाउ। Yeah.
And on the page 1, towards the end of the paragraph, she says, the theme was dissolving the dualistic tension between us and them, this and that, good and bad, by inviting what we usually avoid. My teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche, described this as leaning into the sharp points. What does that mean?
Leading into the sharp point.
Leaning into the sharp points.
Yeah, it's she already mentioned in the previous lines what it is. What don't you understand?
So like dissolving the dualistic tension between us and them.
That you don't understand. Well, that's very difficult. Yeah, but you understand the words, right? Yeah. Us and them. Pura dunya us and them pe chal raha hai. That's why we fight. Hindus fight Muslims. Jews fight Palestinians. Protestants fight Catholics. Us and them. That dualism. I, other. Very strong sense of I, very strong sense of I. So leaning into the sharp point means, yeah, you're getting to the edge of things, difficult, challenging circumstance. That's what sharp point means. It's like go to the places that scare you. So in one of the books she quotes, that female practitioner was told by her guru, go to the places that scare you. Help people you think you cannot help. Things like that. Challenge yourself. Go, get out of your comfortable envelope. Go to the sharp point. We like the soft points. We like the soft mattresses. We like our little rituals, regimes which keep us comfortable. So the real practitioners go to situations that challenge them, the sharp points. Huh?
Like going out in the rain right now.
Oh, I'm going to go out and sing in the rain. It's not raining very hard, is it? It's probably just some thunder and drops. Yeah. So that's what it means. Stretch yourself, it means. Don't fall for us and them, good and bad, so much. Thanks, Roy Saab. Thanks for coming. Nice to see you, although you didn't show your face. I think I know who you are. Yeah.
Yes, Kyabje, thank you so much.
Yeah, take care. Hi, Yogi. Do you have a simple question, Yogi?
टाइम है क्या? मैं छोटा सवाल है.
बोलिए.
I was wondering, is there any program, any such workshop for 1 week or 2 weeks for really practicing the 8 verses of mind training deeply?
Any workshop?
Yeah.
You mean, are we planning anything?
Yeah, I'm asking that.
Well, we could. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
To go into it in depth would be a good idea.
That will help us coming together and practice live.
Yeah, we need to have a weekend workshop at some point with Tushita. बहुत साल हो गए नहीं किए.
हाँ.
तो ऐसा कुछ सोचेंगे, कर सकते हैं. Let's
Okay,
see.
thank you. Thank you.
It's a good idea.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we don't have residential space for many people, but for sure we could have something non-residential over 2 days, even more. But of course, people find it difficult to come. But if we found some motivated people, we could have.
कहीं रिट्रीट हो सकता है 1-2 दिन के लिए जहां हम लोग ये कर सकते हैं समवेयर.
रिट्रीट का मतलब कि कहीं और जाना पड़ेगा. हाँ, ये भी संभव है, लेकिन थोड़ा ऑर्गेनाइज करना पड़ेगा. संभव है, या.
Okay.
Of course, it's a good idea. It's best to have a residential retreat where there's no break. One doesn't go home in between. That can be jolting. Yeah. Unfortunately, Tushita is still very small. Although once we did a retreat here with 6-7 students from Uttar Pradesh. Okay. We had a retreat in Hindi. We gave, which I gave. On this was many years ago. Because they were very happy with simple accommodation. You see, these young people from UP. तो 6-7 लोग यहाँ ठहरे थे और 2 दिन का किए थे शायद. 2 या 3 दिन का किए थे. हाँ, were you here? Yes. I don't think. No, you weren't here. This was with a group from Shravasti, Manpuri area. Anyway, good. Any more feedback?
I have a book with me. Have you heard this name? His Holiness Gyalwang Drupka.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, is this a question or something useful you are suggesting?
No, I have got this book. I want to go through this book. It has got 3 chapters.
Good.
Chapter 1 is the uncommon path.
आपका सवाल क्या है? आपका सवाल क्या है?
ये बुक पढ़ने लायक है या नहीं?
होगा. If it's a qualified teacher, it looks like. पढ़िए, आप देखिए. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds quite good.
Thank you.
Yalwang sounds good. I think it's one of the Drukpa Kagyu masters.
Yeah, His Holiness Gyalwang Drupka. It has 3 sections. The book has. I have started in first chapter is uncommon path. The second chapter is walking your path. And the third chapter is overcoming obstacles along your way.
Very good. Very good. आप इसको पढ़िए धीरे धीरे. Thank you, Nishi. Thank you, Nishi, for joining. Any question? You're a newcomer. Anything? Was it useful? Not really.
No.
Unusual, maybe. You weren't expecting this. But it's helpful, right? A little helpful.
I mean, you already told me that it's not the only meditation, speaking and.
This is also a kind of meditation you can do. And if you accept a broader definition of meditation, that it's getting the mind used to wholesomeness. That's one definition of meditation. Habituating the mind to what is wholesome. So this is a wholesome way of thinking, but it's a kind of analytical meditation. It's not a stabilizing or breath meditation. It's called analytical meditation. And you yourself think about it. Yeah, does it make sense? And then you can apply it in life. You can begin to apply it. Or you can just, first of all, think about people you don't like, or people who have harmed you, or in the past, or people who are not nice at work, or whatever. Then you can start applying the logic you have heard here. And then you can see things maybe in a different perspective. That could be helpful.
The first thing that came into my mind when it was about anger and being patient, it was up to my daughter. So I get angry a lot. I shout a lot sometimes.
At her.
At her. And generally, I think I am little aggressive.
How old is she?
She's 4.5.
Oh, and how does she upset you?
For anything, I don't think it's her mistake. That's what I'm understanding. It's my mistake to react like that.
बहुत छोटी है ना. She can't control her mind much yet. No?
And then her reaction also gives me more anger because she also reacts the same way.
Oh, she's learning to be aggressive and tough with you. Yeah, it's useful to, yeah. see what-
Probably if it would be a weekend get together, I would like to join. Probably
Yeah.
I will be my husband.
And your husband, is he kind with your daughter?
Yes,
Kinda?
He's very stable. I mean,
He's more gentle, is he?
he is in general patient.
So you get angry with not just your daughter, but with other people also quite easily, or not?
But people close to me, I get angry more. But yeah. Otherwise, people find me friendly, but I know that people whom I am close, I get angry.
Yeah.
They get to see my real nature.
And does the anger last, or you just then let it go? You don't.
It just let it go, but
Yeah.
it boils.
It comes up again and again. So they say that's one disadvantage, of course, of anger. It comes up again and again because you get used to it. You know? Yeah, but it's good you're aware of it. Don't beat yourself up regarding it, but yeah, it's something that can be worked with. No? Anger can be very destructive. And for a young person to receive a lot of anger, not so useful probably for the child. I mean, but you're also loving with your child? Huh?
Yeah, I feel sorry and I just love her. I'm sorry. Reacted that way.
Acha, you tell her you're sorry, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, then that's good. That's good. Because some children suffer so much. You read these stories about really, I think, very disturbed parents. Beat and harm and torture their children. So painful to read because the child can't do anything. They suffer so much child abuse. And, I mean, all over the world, but in Western countries, it's more documented, I guess, because they have social workers keep on talking about it, and so much of their time is often spent working with such cases of child abuse. Anyway, I'm not saying yours is a case of child abuse, but you need to think, yeah. Okay. Good, good, good. So we'll stop there. Let's go out and see if the air is a bit cooler. So thank you. We can dedicate for everyone's happiness and freedom from disturbing emotions. And may we all develop the ability to recognize these disturbing emotions in ourselves and work with them. We develop more and more compassion for everybody, including ourselves. And please dedicate for the long life of all of our great teachers, long life and successful teachings. May we never be separated from authentic teachings that really help our minds. May we never be discouraged in our practice, but keep on going as much as we can. Okay. Thank you very much, onliners, offliners. Awful words we're having to get